move right along here. And
Okay.
you already hit something about the number of conductors in a box that
Yes.
you need to be careful about that, and grounded conductors and terminals and splices. So can you talk a little bit about the terminals and splices? I don't think you talked much about that.
Okay, terminals and splices, what they've started finding out that they used to use a receptacle device or a switch device as a means of making a terminal splice. And what I
Well,
mean by
tell
that
us what a terminal
is
splice is first, because a lot of people
a
may not
terminal
know.
splice is a way of joining two conductors together safely and using an insulated cap or wire nut to be able to keep them in place so electricity can be conducted through it safely and it doesn't overheat and cause any issues. Well, devices are rated for terminal splices, so you can tie a conductor on a screw of a device or a switch and be able to use that as a point of connection. Well, now you've got several conductors coming in one box, depending on the size of the box and the device that's going to go in it. And you have several of them you got to connect. Well, people will say, well, I'll just use the receptacle. It's got two white screws on the side of it. It's got two black screws. Now I got a white and a black coming in. Now I'm going to feed another device. I got another white and black. So they use the device as a termination. And that's not approved anymore by the grounded conductors they're more interested in, which is the neutral conductor. And they want to make sure that you pigtail that off. In other words, all the conductors go in the back of the box, and you get what they call as a wire nut or wire cap, and it's different colors, and the different colors are the different sizes that they have. So the larger the color, the larger the size, the color changes. So red is for 3 or more conductors rated by code, and yellow is for 2 or less conductors. So with that being said, you use that termination device and you pigtail out and you terminate it on the device. You're doing two things there. You're energizing that device, and you're also providing means for that electricity to continue on to the next device or devices that you have. So terminations is about terminating something on that device, receptacle, switch, piece of equipment, whatever that is. It's normally a screw that's provided by the manufacturer, and it says, here is your termination points. And they usually identify them for you too. They'll tell you which one's white, which one's green, and which one's the ungrounded conductor, the hot conductor. Splices or wire nuts or some means of UL listed approved devices can be spliced. That could be several different connector types. We normally use, like in tiny homes, wire nuts. And that's what you would buy at local suppliers and Home Depots and Lowe's and stuff like that. And you'll see on the bag, it's UL listed, and it will tell you how many conductors of what size that you can put on that wire nut. If you try to cheat and you have a overheated situation or a loose connection situation, you try to jam too many wires in one wire nut and one fell out, it arced and caused a fire. Well, then whoever installed the conductor is liable for that. And if there is a injury or death, it's not a pretty thing, and you've caused someone's life, and you also burnt a place down. So not trying to be rough with anybody, just trying to say, don't try to cheat the system. Use the National Electrical Code because it is an insulating standard. The insurance companies have approved it for using it as a risk factor for insuring tiny homes and any other place of installation. So termination should be done properly, and there's means of doing that. And one of the most common means for tiny homes would be wire nuts.
Okay.
Splices would be the devices would be terminations.
Okay. All right. And then we have switches, receptacles, and lights. That's 551.5, 2, and 3 in mine. And it's basically pretty cut and dried, but we're talking about your normal switches and lights and receptacles that you're using in a tiny house or a house installation. But they talk about shower luminaries. what's the difference between a normal luminary and a shower luminary?
Well, I guess the first thing we need to decide what the heck is a luminary. We used to call it a light fixture, and now the
Okay.
French want us to call it luminaries.
Okay.
Be joking about the matter, but it's another way of defining what that is. And a luminary is a device that actually emits lumens, so you can be able to see in the area where you're at, and we normally call it a fixture. And what's the difference between a shower luminary and a normal luminary is, remember, in the shower, there is a wet location, and there's also steam and condensation and humidity. So you got to make sure that that fixture is rated to where that wetness will not enter the light and damage the connections on the fixtures or cause a short. So it is a little bit different. It's got more gaskets on it. It's got glass that's rated for the location that's going to be installed. And it is something that is, when it's mounted up on a box or up on the ceiling, if the water's around it, it's not going to affect that. And it doesn't cause anyone to get electrocuted. The normal luminary is just the appearance of the luminary and what you would like to choose. Make sure it's UL listed, and then you can be able to install that safely onto a box that you have installed. As long as that's done according to the National Electrical Code, and it is a safe installation within its indoor use in dry locations. The one in the shower is for indoor use in damp locations.
And the same thing goes for locating switches. Should not be within wet locations in a tub or a shower
Yes,
unless installed as part of a listed tub or shower assembly. So you might have a jacuzzi that might have a switch on the side of it that would
yes.
turn the jacuzzi on, and
And
that's okay.
normally the manufacturers satisfy that for us by putting in a rubber boot with a switch that's usually pneumatic that hits a pressure switch down in the control box, so it keeps everything away from the wet part of the jacuzzi or spa or whatever you have. And we connect underneath that in a safe, dry location, so it can have electricity to the spa. You can enjoy the use of it, and it's safe.
All right.